All right, let's talk about a massive problem, one that's hiding in plain sight inside so many companies. It's a multi-trillion-dollar problem, and it's quietly draining capital and killing innovation. But the good news, we've got a 5-step plan to fix it, so let's get into it.
First, I just want you to look at this number, $3.4 trillion. Just let that sink in for a second. That's the estimated financial value that gets vaporized when technology projects don't actually line up with what the business is trying to achieve. It's not just a big number, it's a colossal waste of potential.
So what do we call this thing? It's known as the IT execution gap. And what's really important to understand is that this isn't about technology failing. It's not about servers crashing or buggy software. Nope. This is a business problem. It's a failure of alignment, where a tech project gets built, but it just doesn't deliver the results the business actually needed.
To really get a handle on how to fix this, we first have to understand the sheer scale of this disconnect. And honestly, it's pretty shocking.
That huge trillion-dollar number starts to make a whole lot more sense when you look at this data from McKinsey. Get this, a staggering 70%, 70, of all digital transformation initiatives failed to meet their goals. Just think about that. 7 out of every 10 times a company pours millions into a major tech project, it falls short. No wonder we're losing trillions.
So why is this happening over and over again? Well, the root cause isn't technical, it's cultural. For decades, a lot of businesses have treated their IT department like a utility, like the plumbing. They're the people you call when your laptop's broken or the Wi-Fi is down. They're seen as a cost center, an expense to be managed, not as a strategic partner who can actually help grow the business. And this perception, this way of thinking, it creates this painful, self-perpetuating cycle of strategic disconnect. So let's unpack how this vicious cycle actually works.
Here's how it plays out. The business leaders have their big strategy meetings, but IT isn't in the room. So the tech team is basically left in the dark. They just get requests handed down to them. They might build something that's technically perfect, but because it's missing that strategic context, it misses the mark. And what happens then? Well, it just reinforces the C-suite's belief that, see, IT just doesn't get the big picture, and the cycle continues. And let's be clear, this isn't just some fuzzy theoretical problem. This has a direct, measurable impact on the bottom line. Research from Deloitte found that companies that had their business and IT strategies tightly woven together are a full 20% more profitable than their peers who don't. 20%! That is a massive difference.
And it goes way beyond just profitability. There's a huge opportunity cost at play. These aligned companies are just faster. They get new ideas and products out the door 25% faster. They cut down on project delays by as much as 50%. In today's market, that kind of speed is a massive competitive weapon.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we've seen just how painful it is, so now what? Well, here's the good part. There is a solution. A practical, actionable blueprint to turn technology from just another expense into a powerful strategic asset.
Here's the framework. It's a 5-step plan. You start with collaborative roadmap development to get everyone in the same boat. Then, you define metrics that actually matter to the business. After that, you justify every investment with a clear ROI. You communicate your progress in business terms. And finally, you iterate constantly to stay agile. Let's dig into a few of the most critical steps.
Now, every step here is important. But step 2, this is where the real magic happens. If you want IT to be seen as a strategic player, you have to stop talking like a technologist and start speaking the language of business. That means dropping old-school IT metrics like system uptime and focusing on what the business actually cares about: outcomes.
And this table just lays out that shift perfectly. So if you're in finance, who cares about 99.99% uptime? The business cares about reducing transaction latency, which makes customers happier and processing cheaper. In healthcare, forget network availability. What matters is raising the patient satisfaction score on the portal. And in gaming, it's not about how many bugs you fixed. It's about, did we increase the average revenue per user? See the difference? You're connecting the tech directly to value.
All right, next up, step 3. This is all about learning to speak the native tongue of the executive suite, and that language is finance. Every single tech project, big or small, has to be framed as a business case with a clear, defensible return on investment, the good old ROI.
You've probably all seen this classic formula. It seems simple, right? But it's so powerful because it forces a totally different kind of conversation. The discussion is no longer about how much does this cost, but instead, How much value is this going to create?
Now, the real key here is to think broadly about that financial value piece. Of course, you've got the easy stuff, the tangible benefits like new sales or cutting costs. But you can't forget the intangibles, things like making customers happier, boosting employee morale, or strengthening your brand reputation. Those things have a very real financial impact, even if it's a little harder to measure.
Which brings us to step 4, communication. You have to constantly translate your team's technical work into business value. So here's the before and after. The outdated update is, we completed the server migration and got 99.9% uptime. Okay, so what? The strategic update sounds like this. Our new platform's reliability supported a 7% increase in transaction capacity during our busiest sales period. Now that gets a CEO's attention. One is a cost, the other is an asset.
And finally, step 5 is all about agility. You have to throw out that old, dusty, rigid 5-year plan. That's a relic from another era. In today's world, your strategic roadmap has to be a living, breathing document. You have to work in short cycles, get constant feedback, and be ready to pivot when the market changes. Rigidity is the absolute enemy of modern strategy.
When you put all of these steps into practice, what you get is a fundamental transformation. Technology stops being a line item on an expense report, and it becomes what it should be, a true catalyst, a driver of your company's competitive advantage.
And if there's one single idea that captures this entire explainer, it's this quote right here. An IT roadmap is not a technical document for geeks. It is a business plan. It's the blueprint for how your company is going to win in a digital-first world. And that means it has to be created and owned by the entire business, not just the IT department.
So, what's the path forward? What are the key takeaways? It really boils down to this. You've got to collaborate across all departments. You have to measure what actually matters to the business, you have to communicate in the language of value, and you have to always be ready to adapt.
And make no mistake, closing this execution gap is not a small thing. I'd argue it's the single biggest organizational challenge of our time. The companies that figure this out are going to be the leaders for the next generation. And the ones that don't, they risk being left behind.
And so that leaves us with one final question, a question for you to take back to your own world. Is the technology in your organization just a cost to be managed down? Or is it being truly unleashed as your greatest competitive advantage? The answer to that question might just define your future.